So after I criticized Hiromu at another joke Arakawa for having a Bathos problem, some of the responses were stunning. Instead of acknowledging that the story they stan might have some flaws, the stans decided to twist reality to adapt to the criticism like Mahoraga. Suddenly, FMA has always been a comedy. Okay, it's as if they're so used to everyone bowing down to FMA that they don't know how to respond to actual criticism. How can I prove that Fullmetal Alchemist is not a comedy? Step 1. Consensus. On Wikipedia, FMA's genres are adventure, dark fantasy, and steampunk. No comedy. On my anime list, the genres are action, adventure, drama, fantasy, and military. No comedy. How about Tsugai? Wikipedia says dark adventure, fantasy, supernatural. Mal says action, adventure, fantasy. No comedy. Let's try the same thing for the most popular action comedy, One Punch Man. Wikipedia says action comedy superhero. Mal says action comedy, so FMA and Tsugai failed the test, but Opium passed. What about Gintama, another popular action comedy? Wikipedia says adventure, samurai, sci-fi, comedy. Mal says action, comedy, sci-fi. Gintama passed too. Let me keep going with action comedies. For dandadan, Wikipedia says action, romantic comedy, and supernatural thriller. Mal says action, comedy, supernatural. For Soul Eater, Wikipedia says action, dark comedy, and dark fantasy. Mal says action, comedy, fantasy. For Mashal, Wikipedia says adventure, fantasy, comedy. Mal says action, comedy, fantasy. So based on consensus that is not impacted by my personal biases, FMA and YNT are not comedies, but OPM, Gintama, dandadan, Soul Eater, and Mashal are. I sure hope none of you use Mal as an argument for FMA being great. I agree with everything here except for Soul Eater. Soul is hilarious, but I don't think it's a comedy because I feel like the comedy has to influence the plot. Soul is just a battle manga that has insanely funny jokes in it. I believe this method is imperfect because the understanding of genre in Wikipedia and Mal can be shaky. For example, none of these were specified to be in the battle genre, which is more specific than action. The reason being that most of the West still doesn't completely understand that word. What is a more story engineering way to objectively look at the story and determine if it's under the comedy genre or not? Brief detour, but it's baffling that I'm seeing people defend Bathos. If I type MCU Bathos on YouTube at the time of writing this, I see the Bathos problem for Iron Man 3, MCU has a joke problem, the problem of Bathos, Trope Talk Bathos, Star Wars but with Marvel humor. The first is defending Bathos as a response to the criticism of too much Bathos. The remaining videos criticize it, with Trope Talk saying that there are times it can be used well, but the MCU doesn't. FMA's Bathos is nearly identical to the MCU's. It's mind-boggling that the movie community understands this, but the anime community doesn't, or maybe it's just the FMA stance defending this. Back on topic. I have not done enough research on the comedy genre, so what I'm about to propose is still rough around the edges. I call it the comedy test. I will summarize the story of a chapter or arc in an objective, non-funny way, then we will determine if it sounds like a comedy plot or a non-comedy plot. There are 3 grades, not funny, maybe funny, and funny. Pretend like you've never heard the story before. Comedy is subjective, so we'll probably have different answers, but I'm hoping that even if the plot doesn't sound funny to you, you can at least acknowledge that it's attempting to be funny. For example, if I say the plot of this chapter is 2 guys trying to stop 9/11, but they accidentally make things worse, even if you're the type to never laugh at a 9/11 joke, you would at least say maybe funny, because you can see that there's a comedic attempt being made. I'd never laugh at that, by the way. I'll try to cut out any mention of how any of these stories end and explain later. First up, One Punch Man. Chapter 1. A monster attacks a city and someone who's a hero for fun fights him. I say maybe. Chapter 3. A scientist turns his brother into a kaiju. When the kaiju brother accidentally kills his scientist brother while trying to stop Saitama, they fight. Maybe. Chapter 4. Saitama dreams about fighting a challenging opponent. Maybe. Next arc, Saitama struggles to kill a regular mosquito despite his overwhelming power, while Genos fights a mosquito girl. This is funny. The heroes go to fight an evil scientist and fight the strongest creation, Kabuto. Not funny. Chapter 12's arc, the Paradisers become a villain group because they refuse to get normal jobs. They believe those who want to work should support everyone else. Since all the Paradisers are bald, Saitama could get mistaken for them, so he decides to stop them. Funny. So far, there is only one storyline that has gotten a grade of not funny. This is because the humor is built into the premise of these plots, like a comedy should. I skipped over chapter 2 because it was a serious backstory that I believed wasn't supposed to be funny. The reason I cut out the climaxes is because they made it a little too obvious which was funny and which wasn't. The first monster attack ends with one punch, making Saitama mad. The kaiju ends with one punch and Saitama accidentally destroying a city. The dream ends with Saitama waking up and easily defeating a tiny version of what he dreamed of. Mosquito Girl ends with one slap. The Paradisers ends with Hammerhead getting a job. Most of these arcs climax with punchlines, a trait comedy stories do, that would make it too obvious that it was supposed to be funny. Now let's do FMA. The Elrics are looking for a way to recover their bodies and expose a fake religious leader for manipulating his people. Not funny. A mine town is being taxed into the ground by a corrupt military man. Not funny. A train is attacked by hijackers and the elrics fight back. Not funny. The elrics study Tucker's work to find a way to get their bodies back. Not funny. An alchemist killer tries to kill the elrics as they run and fight. Not funny. The elrics go to their mechanic to get fixed. Not funny. The elrics discover that the stone that could heal them is made of live humans and they sneak around the lab for more information. Not funny. That's 16 chapters in and there isn't even a single maybe. What's worse is that if I include the climax of all of these arcs, it solidifies them as not funny. The Mine Town arc becomes a maybe. I've never read Gintama, but I'll put it through the test too. Chapter 1. Gintoki beats up people for spilling his parfait. The commotion he causes gets Shin fired from his job. To protect their dojo, Shin's older sister joins the red light district. The duo goes to save her. I'll say maybe because of the parfait. Even though I know it's funny, I could see that being handled in a purely serious way. Chapter 2. Gintoki and Shin are behind on rent. The Bakufu hire them to find an alien's pet, but they don't want to. The pet is revealed to be a monster, and they were hired as sacrifices. Again, I'll say maybe. The main character being broke seems like a detail that could be comedic along with the plot twist, but I could also see this being a serious plot twist too. Chapter 3. Gintoki hits a girl on his scooter while being distracted by Shonen Jump magazine. They try to take the girl to the hospital, but a car pulls up and starts shooting at them. The girl blocks with her umbrella and shoots back, presumably killing him. Kagura is running away from a group of thugs because they want her to kill for them. This is funny. I say that with ease because of the intro. Not only is Gintoki a grown man worrying about comic books, but Gintama is part of Jump, so it's a fourth wall break, and then he hits a pedestrian on the way, which quickly spirals into a shootout. Taking a pedestrian you hit to the hospital and then getting involved in an assassination attempt against that person could be the plot of a serious story, but it could just as easily be a zany story, which in this case it was. And then one of the plot points later on is getting stuck in a garbage can. Chapter 4. An alien who works for Otose is introduced as a polite person. When the police come knocking for an alien thief, she is revealed to be the thief and steals Gintoki's scooter to escape. The heroes chase after her. Maybe funny. Again, I can see the comedy in the subversion, but I can also see this as a dramatic plot twist. However, the fact that almost every chapter has had a plot twist would make me lean towards comedy. That means this comedy manga never got a not funny grade. Gintama is pretty funny by the way. Next is Naruto. You'll see why by the end. Chapter 1. Naruto fails his clone jutsu test, so Mizuki tricks him into stealing a scroll to impress his teacher, Iruka. Maybe funny. Mizuki could be pranking him, and it could end comedically. Chapter 2. Naruto teaches Konohamaru how to transform into a naked girl to get rid of his teacher. Funny. Chapter 3. Naruto likes Sakura, but Sakura likes Sasuke, so Naruto captures Sasuke and transforms into him to kiss Sakura. Funny. Chapter 4. Team 7 gets Kakashi as their mentor, and he gives them the bell test. Not funny. The reason I included Naruto here is because chapters 2 and 3 are comedy chapters, and the plot proves it. Chapters 1 and 4 aren't. I'll talk about the climaxes later because I want to include all of the stories here. Next is One Piece. Arc 1. Luffy gets mad at Higuma for disrespecting Shanks, so he tries to avenge him. Higuma captures Luffy and Shanks has to save him. Not funny. Arc 2. Luffy ends up on Alvida's ship and tells the abused Kobe to stand up for himself before fighting her. Not funny. Arc 3. Luffy saves Zoro from being executed. Not funny. Arc 4. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami end up in Orange Town, which is under Buggy's control. Nami initially betrays the pirates, but then she works with them to stop Buggy. Not funny. I'll spare you the monotony because no arc in these early chapters will get any grade except not funny. I also agree that none of these chapters are comedy chapters. Next is Bleach. Chapter 1. Ichigo and Rukia work together to kill a hollow. Not funny. Chapter 2. Ichigo and Rukia argue over responsibilities as a Shinigami. Not funny. Arc 3. Orihime's dead brother returns as a hollow and attacks her. Not funny. Arc 4. A parakeet with a dead kid's soul in it causes Chad harm because the hollow is playing a game of chase with it. They have to fight the hollow at the end. Not funny. Bleach continues like this. I also agree that none of these chapters are comedy chapters. Last is the Shadow Realm. Chapter 1. Yuru's village gets slaughtered. Not funny. Chapter 2. Yuru fights off the attackers with his new Tsugai. Not funny. Chapter 3 is mostly exposition. Not funny. Chapter 4. The family that attacked his home lures him out. Not funny. Chapter 5. They fight. Not funny. Chapter 6. The characters have a peaceful meeting with the Kagemori family, but then they are attacked by enemies. Not funny. Chapter 7. They fight. Not funny. Chapter 8. They capture the enemies. Not funny. Once more, I'll spare you the monotony because none of these stories have funny plots. There is obviously a pattern here. The comedy manga, the actual comedy manga, have stories that sound potentially funny just from their summaries, while the non-comedy manga don't. Naruto is the exception, having 2 comedy chapters in its first volume. So when I said that One Punch Man is a comedy, Fullmetal and Shadow Realm aren't, I meant it. The consensus supports it, and my comedy test supports it. But that's not all. One Punch Man, Gintama, and Naruto show how to turn on comedy and how to turn it off. Chapter 1 of OPM is pure jokes. Even though Chapter 2 starts with a lot of jokes, when it gets inspirational, it turns off the comedy and goes completely genuine, making the moment emotional. That's good writing. Then it returns to comedy for the next few chapters, but towards the end of the Paradisers arc, when it wants to get serious and teach a lesson in Chapter 14, it mostly gets rid of the jokes for that moment to land. Let's skip ahead to my favorite moment. In Chapter 26, Moomin Rider, who is a gag character in the Paradisers arc, a man with no abilities, fights the Deep Sea King, someone who everyone has been losing to. This was an easy moment for a gag because he's like Mr. Satan trying to fight Cell. Yet the chapter has no jokes. Saitama's face may look funny, but that's just his design 90% of the time. Even in the next chapter when Saitama defeats the villain and then plays the bad guy to protect everyone else's reputation, it is written and drawn seriously. This is a comedy manga, but due to its mature choice not to undercut the emotional moments with humor, they are allowed to land with maximum force. The same goes for Gintama. At the end of Chapter 1, Shin's sister delivers an emotional monologue to him. There were jokes throughout the entire chapter, but none here. In Chapter 2, there are a lot of jokes, but when they fight the monster and Gintoki gives his life lesson, and then the agent reflects on it and has a change of heart, it is mostly serious. There's a joke after the internal monologue, but by then, the impact has landed. Chapter 4 is hilarious, but in the climax, when Otose confronts Catherine, there's no comedy, just raw emotion. They pair an emotional tragic flashback of Otose and Gintoki meeting for the first time, and his promise to protect her, with Gintoki defeating Catherine to save Otose in the present. I felt that. In that moment, it was a powerful battle manga, not a comedy manga. And then there's the two funny chapters in Naruto. Both of them start very humorous, but at the end, they hit you with a serious and powerful lesson. There are no jokes when Naruto tells Konohamaru, there are no shortcuts. There are no jokes when Sasuke tells Sakura, "You make me sick," and Sakura reflects on her treatment of Naruto. Even though these are comedic plots, these moments land because they cut the jokes and amplify the sincerity. When Al teaches Ed not to sacrifice his life and is executed through slapstick, it doesn't land. When Maria Ross teaches Ed about relying on others and there are gags in the moment, it doesn't land. When Winry tells Al off for saying his brother lied about his whole existence and is done with silly art, it doesn't land. I'm not repeating all the Bathos moments of Fullmetal and Shadow Realm, but you should see the difference by now. My next test is quick. I call it the humor remover. It's a follow-up to the comedy test. If you remove all of the gags and jokes from any given chapter, can it still exist? With Arakawa's work, the answer is an absolute yes. Because none of the plotlines are comedic in nature, you can easily remove all of the jokes, and the story arguably gets better. But with stories like One Punch Man and Gintama, removing the jokes would completely change the story because many of them are built on jokes, or climax with a joke. Carnage Kabuto's fight is a perfect example. The entire battle builds to the funny climax of Saitama killing Kabuto because he realized he missed a sale, making him angry. The climax of Sonic's fight is him getting rocked in the genitals. Saitama's dream is epic because it builds to the subversive punchline of real life being easy and boring. In Gintama, the inciting incidents of chapters 1, 3, and 4 are all jokes. It would take effort to rewrite these plots without the jokes. You'd have to cut Konohamaru's chapter in Naruto, and removing the jokes from chapter 3 would turn Naruto into a creep. Arakawa does not build her stories on the foundation of comedy. She adds comedy afterwards. That's also how I feel about Soul Eater, which is why I wouldn't consider it a comedy. The last argument I saw is that other or all battle manga do this. To be clear, I criticized Arakawa for using Bathos, which is weakening serious or emotional moments with humor. I did not criticize her for being unfunny or having too many jokes. So in regards to Bathos, One Piece does not have this, neither do Naruto, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and basically every super popular battle manga that is not a comedy since 2000. The only way I could convincingly prove this is by going through every serious moment in their first couple chapters and showing that there's no comedy there, but that'd be a waste of my time. If you understand what Bathos is, and you read these for yourself, you will understand that none of these manga have Bathos like Arakawa. I believe anyone who argues otherwise is lying or doesn't understand Bathos. In conclusion, the general consensus does not consider Hiromu Do Something Funny Arakawa's works to be comedies. That is a Hail Mary thrown by stans that want to avoid criticism. Arakawa's manga also do not have comedic plotlines or climaxes, something that actual action comedy do have. Her jokes are added in post-production, which weakens the chances that her manga can honestly be viewed as comedies. Finally, other battle manga that are not comedies but include jokes do not undermine their serious moments with jokes like she does. This is another Hail Mary thrown to throw other manga under the bus in an attempt to avoid criticism. By the way, I actually like Fullmetal. It has a lot of great writing, but the writing of its tone is not one of them.